Let's bring in Tahani Mustafa. She's a political analyst with the International Crisis Group, joins us live from London. Thank you for being with us on the program. As you witness these hundreds of thousands of Palestinians finally able to return back to the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, to their homes, what does that make you feel? What goes through your mind?
Well, I mean, certainly it looks like life is going back to normal with the current return, but I think definitely, Palestinians are very much aware, similar to those in the south that were able to return back in the last few days, that nothing but destruction awaits them. So it's definitely, a bag of mixed emotions, I think, where on the one hand, you're seeing the absolute sheer scale of destruction. But on the other, you're seeing the determination amongst Palestinians to simply begin again, renew, rebuild.
There's a long history of Palestinians being expelled from their land, and some experts believe that that's what Israel wants to do with the north of Gaza. How significant of a moment is this for Palestinians that are able to finally return to their homes in the north after 15 months of being deprived of their land, their homes?
Well, I think many didn't really expect this recent move by Israel. I think many had expected that, given the sheer scale of investment that Israel has put into making sure that Gaza is completely unlivable, especially the northern parts, it was very unlikely to see Israel allow for resettlement, never mind reconstruction. So it definitely is, something that I think has surpassed, I guess, the skepticism that many of us had felt, especially when we saw Israel effectively violating its obligation yesterday by, delaying the opening of the corridor. But, as I said, it's certainly something that is currently, it's igniting a mixed set of emotions. And I think definitely this does add a little bit of faith to how far phase one can at least take us with regards to the ceasefire deal.
Donald Trump, he was perceived as the man who made the deal happen, but straight afterwards, when he was inaugurated as the next president of the United States, he quickly said that he had no confidence in the deal. And then following those remarks, he said that they should relocate Palestinians to other countries like Jordan and Egypt. What does this tell us about the future of Palestine under the U.S. being led by a leader like Donald Trump, who is very pro-Israel?
Well, I think it's very expected. Palestinians were very much warning from November that if we were to see a ceasefire, any sort of ceasefire in Gaza, it won't be a ceasefire in terms of substance. It would be simply the reality we've been seeing over the last 15 months, but at a much lower intensity scale. So I definitely don't think anyone is necessarily optimistic or really putting their faith in this current U.S. administration. Certainly not Palestinians, and I think even Hamas are quite cynical in terms of how far the U.S. is going to be one of the guarantors to the ceasefire, and how far we will actually substantially get within the ceasefire. Definitely we've been hearing, this idea of displacing Palestinians from Gaza, but again, that isn't something that neither Israel nor the U.S. can really dictate. Regional states themselves and Palestinians have been warning about this since the beginning, and they've been very much adamant on not allowing that to happen for various reasons. Regional states don't have the political capacity. Jordan had declared any attempt to do so as a declaration of war. So as much as people are fearing the worst, this certainly won't be an easy ride for either the U.S. or Israel to simply pursue these sorts of expansionist ambitions.
Do you think with the pressure of Trump, as we saw him put on Netanyahu to make this ceasefire deal happen, the pressure of Trump on nations like Jordan and Egypt will see the forced displacement of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip?
Well, I think both Israel and the U.S. seem to underestimate the connection Palestinians have to their land. And so to assume that you will be able to simply displace so many Palestinians, that's not going to be an easy feat. And the same thing for places like Jordan and Egypt. Jordan and Egypt. This is going to be, this is an existential crisis for them. For Jordan, the concern here is not just simply Gaza, but the fact that this may soon set a precedent for these annexationist plans in the West Bank and potentially a de facto state, Palestinian state within Jordan, something that Jordan itself has been fearing for over the last 15 months since the outset of this onslaught. So it's very unlikely that Jordan will allow for that sort of displacement. I mean, they're not even currently allowing for the UN, that has been barred in terms of its operations or leadership presence in Israel. They're not even allowing them to take residence in places like Amman simply because of the fear of the precedents that this will set. Or offset, let's say. And the same thing for Egypt. It simply doesn't want the conflict spilling over into its own borders.
We're currently in phase one of the ceasefire deal. If I'm remembering correctly, it's going to last about 42 days. And then phase two begins. During this initial 42 days, mediators are going to sit and negotiate about what phase two is going to look like. Netanyahu early on had said that they may resume the war. Do you think we'll see phase two come to life?
I think there's a lot of skepticism around phase two. I think Hamas are certainly cynical, as well as many other Gazans, Palestinians, anyone who's really been following the sort of promotion around this current ceasefire deal. And already we've had indicators from both the Trump administration and Netanyahu indicating that they have no interest in pursuing any substantial cessation of hostilities. So I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see phase two, let alone phase three, really sort of play itself out or be implemented. I mean, this was something that even aid organizations themselves were warning about back in November, where many had anticipated, again, the reality we've seen over the last 15 months becoming the reality, at least for the next 3 to 5 years, where you'll see Palestinians in Gaza being shuffled into smaller and smaller patches of territory, dependent on aid for everything, and whereby you'll have private security contractors effectively distributing and managing things like law and order.
Right. I mean, you're joining us with the International Crisis Group, Tahani. What's their analysis of the current humanitarian crisis that we've seen unfold in Gaza as people return back to their homes in the north?
I mean, it's been absolutely devastating. And I think now that we're starting to gain a less of a localized picture and more of a bigger sort of macro view of the sheer scale of destruction, I think definitely, in terms of the humanitarian toll this has taken, has been substantial. I mean, even now we're seeing aid trucks being able to pass through, but that's nowhere near as sufficient as what Gazans need. And so, I think for now, at least, while Israel is sticking to its obligations under this current deal, allowing things to go through, hopefully this should offer Palestinians some sort of reprieve. Again, not nearly as sufficient as what they need, but it's still better than what we saw prior to the ceasefire coming into effect.
And can you talk to us a bit about what their immediate needs are, given that they've experienced one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes we've ever seen in modern history?
Well, I mean, definitely things like food, medicine, temporary shelters. I think that's something we haven't actually seen enter yet, something that the international community had pledged to provide, like temporary housing units. Those still haven't really come through. But certainly food, especially in the north, where aid wasn't really getting in. That we had reports of imminent famine. So certainly food and medical supplies, I think, are the most immediate in terms of need.
Okay, Tahani Mustafa, thank you so much for being with us here on the NewsHour and sharing that analysis with us. I really, really appreciate it.